Hi, Meal Masters. Good evening. Dr. Monique May coming to you live on this Monday, rainy Monday, December 23rd, 2 whole days before Christmas. You know me, I am Dr. Monique May, your board certified family physician, founder of Physician in the Kitchen, and through my home meal delivery service, soon to come, and cooking utensils, I help busy households enjoy healthy eating without impacting their hectic schedules. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me tonight. I wanted to talk briefly about gluten sensitivity. So be sure to share this information with friends and loved ones because hopefully I will be sharing some information that you either don't know or if you've heard before, may just put a little bug in your ear about gluten because there seems to be a lot of press or a lot of people talking about gluten sensitivity or gluten sensitive, and there certainly is almost certain grocery stores you go in, it seems to be almost a whole aisle dedicated to gluten-free foods. So I just wanted to talk briefly tonight about what gluten is and why are we talking about it? Like, what's the big deal? So gluten is a component, or it's found in things such as wheat, rye, and barley. And some people, 13% of the population, has some form of intolerance to gluten. In its most severe form, it is called celiac disease. That's CELIAC disease, which is a much more extensive or severe form of gluten insensitivity because it's actually an autoimmune disorder. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But just to start off, so gluten, people who have sensitivity to gluten um, may not realize it because some of the symptoms they're having, they may chalk up to, oh, I just ate something that didn't agree with me, maybe something from a fast food restaurant, or that they think might have maybe been, and tend to kind of blow those symptoms off. But it's important to know that anyone can actually be diagnosed with with gluten sensitivity from childhood all the way through adulthood. You can actually develop it at any age. Um, and you may become aware of it as those symptoms just kind of persist and linger. So what are some of the symptoms that you should talk to your doctor about if you're having that could be signs of gluten sensitivity? So the most common things are going to be just bloating, that feeling that just, your stomach is poofed out after a meal. You just feel blah, like like you've eaten too much, but you haven't. You may not have overdone it, but you just feel that way. So bloating and abdominal pain, cramping, all that definitely possible symptoms of gluten sensitivity. The other thing is, in its more severe form, it can sometimes cause diarrhea. So, and then you can have stools that are kind of fatty, which mean they kind of float a little bit in the toilet or have a really bad smell to them. And children even have pale colored stools, and because they're having diarrhea and weight loss, actually have what we call failure to thrive, meaning that they're not meeting their milestones, they're falling off their growth charts, growth curves. They may be shorter in stature and may even have some other developmental issues. So again, that's in this more severe form, but those are some symptoms. Also, it can be manifest as a skin rash. There is a skin rash associated with celiac, itching and skin rash that can be a manifestation as well. And that can be, if you have that rash, the doctor can actually biopsy that to see what if that is what in fact you have. The other symptoms can be anxiety, depression, even headache can be, and fatigue. So some of those things that are kind of hard to pinpoint, but after eating a meal that has gluten in it, certain people may actually experience some of those symptoms as well. And then with celiac, which is the more severe form, which is the autoimmune disorders, you may have, because you're having the diarrhea and the weight loss, you're losing vitamins. You may be at risk for bone loss or osteoporosis, and just the more extensive, what we call systemic symptoms, meaning not just localized to the intestines. So when we say autoimmune disorder, what we mean is your immune system is this finely tuned guard, right? It's our guard, it's our barrier, our protector from the outside world, from infections and things that want to harm us from the outside world, such as bacteria and viruses and so forth. But in certain people, the switch gets flipped and the body starts to attack itself. So autoimmune, meaning that your body it's tricked into thinking that your own proteins are actually foreign or harmful. And so another way that can manifest too is with joint pain and inflammation as well. So the more extensive form of that, and if you have celiac, or vice versa, if you have other autoimmune disorders such as type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, things like that, or certain thyroid disorders, you may be at risk for developing celiac disease, because again, your body's immune system is inappropriately revved up and is fighting, kind of like friendly fire. It's fighting itself. It's fighting its own proteins, and making antibodies or proteins that fight your own natural tissues. So over time, that can lead to things such as anemia, mouth ulcers, and actually other things like the nervous system, decreased function of the nerves in the hands and feet, which can manifest as numbness and tingling. So just wanted to kind of talk about some of the symptoms. The name of the rash, by the way, is dermatitis herpetiformis. So that's the big fancy term. It's a red, itchy, scaly rash that people may have who have celiac disease, or gluten intolerance. So those are some of the symptoms. How do we test for it? Well, there's blood tests that the doctor can do. There's also, again, if you have the rash, that can be biopsied. There's actually genetic testing that can be done, because there is a genetic component to this. And then the doctor will want to look inside the lining of the intestine, because again, over time, there's damage that can be done. So the doctor wants to look at that. The other and that would help to make the diagnosis. If you do have this condition, unfortunately, it's not a cure for it, but can be treated by dietary modifications, where, of course, you eliminate foods that have gluten in them. I wanted to say also that working with a good nutritionist would be very helpful as well. Then they can help you plan your meals and kind of figure out what foods might be containing gluten. Because I was interested, as I was researching for this, kind of found some surprising sources for gluten, which I, even as a physician, hadn't really thought of. And it's very interesting. Things like prescription and over-the-counter medications, because some of the binders for those things can have gluten in them, vitamin and mineral supplements, lipstick products. Who would have thought gluten can be in lipstick? Toothpaste and mouthwash, communion wafers, envelopes and stamp glue. And here's one that I found interesting: Play-Doh, because what do some kids do? Eat it, right? And so again, if a child is manifesting symptoms, that could be a source. So the treatment for celiac would be, again, the more severe form would be the certain medicines that actually suppress the immune system, because you're trying to calm down that inflammation, the body fighting against itself. So definitely would want to work with a stomach specialist, a dietitian, possibly a dermatologist, depending again on how extensive, if you do have the rash. So the other thing too I wanted to just mention is there's a condition called irritable bowel syndrome, and or IBS, which is actually very common, probably more common than gluten, and certainly more so than the celiac, the more extensive form or more severe form. And there can be very similar symptoms: bloating, either diarrhea or constipation, feeling blah after certain meals. But the thing about IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, that's what we call a functional gastrointestinal disorder versus this celiac. And the difference is functional means, yeah, you don't feel well, it gives you symptoms, but there's not necessarily a test for it, and it doesn't do damage to your body, and you're not going to die from it, worst case scenario. Whereas conditions such as autoimmune disorders, there are actually tests for those, and they actually can do damage to the tissues. So a lot of times doctors may think that you have irritable bowel, and a lot of times that may be what it is. But if you're starting to have, or you're noticing some more of these what we call systemic symptoms, the rashes, the joint pain, the weight loss, the severe diarrhea, that kind of stuff, that is not irritable bowel. And that should not just be blown off as, oh, here's a pill for that, or you just have an irritable bowel and there's nothing, you don't have to worry about it. Because again, irritable bowel is, while frustrating or bothersome, it's not doing damage, whereas the other underlying other issues can, celiac can. So just wanted to spend a few moments talking to you about celiac, some of the foods that you can eat if you do have gluten sensitivity or celiac disease. You can actually eat eggs. Of course, if you're vegan, you don't want to do that, but this is just strictly for gluten. Fresh meats, fish and poultry that are not breaded, batter coated, or marinated, because again, those can have those gluten binders in them. Fruits, lentils, vegetables, of course, vegetables are always on the list as good for you. Nuts, potatoes, and wine and distilled liquors, but you want to stay away from beer because beer has barley or rye, right? So there are, and then as far as which grains and starches are good for gluten, that's going to include things like buckwheat, cornmeal, gluten-free flours such as rice, soy, almond, pure corn tortillas, and wild rice or regular rice. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes with you guys, just kind of raising your awareness about gluten and sensitivity. So if you or someone you know or love are having some of those not quite right symptoms, and it's more than just the occasional meal not agreeing with them, please go get it checked out. Go see your family doctor, your primary care doctor, or your specialist, gastroenterologist, who can look a little further and see exactly what is going on underneath. All right. And for a delicious gluten-free dessert, I'm sure you guys have heard about my vegan gluten-free pound cakes. Head on over to goodvegancake.com. Place your order because I've got sweet potato and pumpkin and soon to come chocolate and lemon. So get your orders in. So I'm going to sign off, and I'll probably be back on after the holiday, but I hope you guys have been very, and see you on the other side. This is Dr. Monique May, your board-certified family physician, founder of Physician in the Kitchen, and through my home meal delivery service, cookbooks, and cooking utensils, say that fast 5 times, I help I help busy households enjoy healthy eating without impacting their schedule. You guys have a good night.